Hello, my name is Sandra Perrone, and I am Associate Professor teaching photography, philosophy, honor seminar courses here at STCC. I'm also the gallery coordinator at the Amy H. Carberry Fine Arts Gallery, located in Building 28, where we are recording this conversation today. The Carberry Gallery exhibitions are intended to foster intellectual engagement and dialogue beyond the traditional classroom. This learning environment attempts to break preconceived notions of a gallery as an exclusive space, while sharing who artists are and what they create to inspire students to pursue their own creative endeavors and career goals. One of the primary objectives of this gallery is to bring to campus a wide range of media, ideas, artistic practices, which expose students to an array of creative and intellectual work. At STCC, fine arts courses are open to everyone, and the importance of visual literacy to every student's overall educational experience cannot be understated, no matter the major. This is the 6th and final virtual event this semester in a series of interviews called Carberry Conversations. Originally conceived in response to the ongoing pandemic, these conversations function as a kind of retrospective. Each interview covers a wide variety of topics, including origin stories, the impact of current events on artistic practice, and the function of art and photography during times of crisis. In this exhibition that we are going to talk about today, we have a very unique opportunity to reemerge from the pandemic with a renewed sense of purpose and commitment to the Greater Springfield arts community. And Donnabelle Casis is the perfect artist to partner with on such an intense and experimental artistic journey. Donnabelle earned her MFA in painting from the University of Washington. Her work has been included in national and international solo and group exhibitions. She has received numerous awards and grants, and her work is included in several public and private collections. She is on the curatorial committee of the Art Salon. She is the curator founder of Florence Night Out, and she promotes the work of Pioneer Valley artists on her weekly WHMP radio Art Beat segment. Welcome, Donnabelle, to this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a real honor. So, and privilege.
Likewise. So we should just make sure that people really understand we are inside your exhibition right now.
Yes, which is still currently being installed in process.
Yes. So we're down to the final 24 hours right now. As I was preparing my remarks for today, I was reflecting on when we first met. And I had to go back in the emails to like retrace our first meeting at Art Salon.
It's been a long time.
And it's been a long time. Yes. So, but I would like to start by going back even further. And go back to thinking about some of your earliest artistic influences. What is your first memory of art?
My first memory of art is probably doing a drawing in kindergarten of a deer for some reason. Actually, I was working with a great uncle who happened to be visiting, and that was the strangest thing, but that was the first art experience I had. I continued to draw very frequently, and I didn't really know I was going to be a working artist, professional artist, probably until after I took a painting class in college. Like, I was actually originally a graphic design major. And once I took that painting class, I said, oh, this is it. This is absolutely it. And I looked at all sorts of work from the very beginning. Some of the earliest influences that I can recall that still sort of influence me today are works by Philip Guston, an amazing painter. Also, most recently, I've been looking at a lot of sculpture, Nikki Dussonfal, and also Yayoi Kusama, of course, Eva Hess, both her paintings and her sculptures. But really, some of the works that I'm looking at aren't really by professional artists. I'm very intrigued by self-taught artists. I'm curious about their drive, their passion, their intensity, where it's coming from without any constraints to what is good art, what makes something professional.
Mhm.
So that to me really is inspiring. So artists like self-taught artist, African-American artist, Joseph Yoakum, who just had a huge retrospective at the Whitney and others.
Mhm. Well, that leads me to your cultural influences. You are a Filipino American artist, and cultural identity is important. And one of the things that we find in your work is references to textiles, Filipino textiles. Do you want to talk a little bit about those textiles and how they form in your work?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's really interesting. I never fully identified as a Filipino American artist until most recently, probably within the last 10 years. And it was because I was born in the Philippines, but I was mostly raised in the US since I was 2 years old and didn't have a huge cultural experience while I was here. So I didn't really identify as Filipina until I started doing a lot of research in my work. And what I'm most curious about in my studio practice is studying markers of identity, sort of how you express yourself to the world, how the world then reflects back onto you. And in my research, I studied Spanish bullfighting costumes, of all things, and chainmail and things related to armor. And I happened upon the cultural history of Philippine tribal tattoos, and which then led me to the textiles. But first, I really need to talk about the tattoos because, again, they are definitely markers of identity for a lot of people. You can tell a lot about a person by the marks that they wear without language. And that to me is very exciting and interesting because what are the choices behind putting those marks on your body? So there's actually a pretty long history of Philippine tribal tattooing, but not a lot of documentation. And so the past 5 years I was researching and realized that one of the oldest living tattoo artists was still alive, who did the traditional tapping method. And if we go to slide 3, you'll see that her name is Apawang Ad. She was 103 years old at the time. I had never been back to the Philippines since I was born and left when I was 2. So in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I decided to take a pilgrimage, more likely, to go visit her. And I did a trek for 10 hours and traveled into a remote village high in the Cordillera Mountains. The village is Buscalan village in Tinilan, Kalinga province. And that's, if you see the picture on the top left of that image, you'll see the tiny village that is up there. And I hiked up there. It was an amazing hike, and met her and got inked by her. And for me, that became the moment where I literally reconnected with my heritage. And so she is the last of the tattooers who actually tattooed the headhunters, who no longer exist, obviously. She had learned tattooing from her father. And because she never had any descendants, the love of her life had died in one of the wars, she decided to pass on the tradition to her 2 grandnieces. So you'll see one of the tattoos on slide 4 of the inking that happened. And just to describe it, it's pretty painful. It is the traditional tapping method. It's using calamansi thorn, which is about 1.5 inches, very sharp, like a lemon tree. They put that on a bamboo stick. They take soot from the fire, mix it with water to create the ink, put it on the needle after they've traced the design with a blade of grass with the ink, and tap it into your skin. And in that tapping, you know, you're embedding the ink into the skin. And so the picture you see there is really just one round. They do it 3 times. So it's like going into a wound, open wounds to just bleeding. But anyway, it was quite cathartic. But, you know, I mention this because in the tattoo culture, the tattoos are earned. And what I found really poetic is that they believed, you know, the more tattoos you are, the more fierce a warrior you are, or your status in society, but also they believed that their tattoos would glow in the afterlife and light their path. So obviously the more tattoos, the brighter the path. And that really stuck with me.
So this sounds like a really important event.
Yes, it was.
That happened.
It was.
What impact did getting these tattoos have on your art?
On my art?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just made me more entrenched in finding more information about my cultural heritage. And so I found after tattooing was sort of banned because of the way they were earned, which was headhunting, they transferred their symbols onto their textiles because they wanted to still embody their symbology. And so they would wear textiles with their symbols on them. And so if you look at slide 2, I began looking at some of the patterns and textiles from the areas, the different areas all over the Philippines and other textiles as well. And if you look at, and so in slide 2, you'll see some samples, but if you look at slide 5, you'll notice that this painting that I did back in 2020 really sort of took the idea of the markers and the patterns and the glowing of the tattoos in the afterlife, where you see this sort of light emanating from behind the painting. That's clearly a reference to that experience.
Yeah. So this happened February 2020. This
January, yes.
January, February.
Right before, literally as I
Excuse me.
left, they shut the doors to the village, to the country. I could have been stuck there. I was amazed to get out of there in time.
You come home, we're getting ready for your show.
Yes.
This is March of 2020.
I had built this whole body of work. I was so excited. I took a week installing the whole installation.
Yeah. We had a peppermint green wall.
Yes, I painted a green wall. So if you look
So
at
it's
slide 6, you'll see this gorgeous green wall, which was again an influence from the colors I was seeing in the Philippines. Like I hadn't been to my original homeland, and like these colors were just singing. We put the show up,
and yet that color was in your artwork already.
It's almost like this is why it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Right.
So the show opens
Yes.
March 10th, 2020.
Right.
And so my next question is, how did the pandemic impact your work?
Well, 2 days after the show opened, we had to close the entire show, and actually the whole building shut down.
Yeah.
And I had to deinstall the entire exhibit, and it was heartbreaking. It was it really, I think we were all sort of in shock, but this sort of impacting my show also put me in shock, and I was just like, oh, okay. I couldn't make work for a while. I barely got to my studio. Like I felt like there's so much going on in the world that I couldn't even wrap my head around making something. Like it seemed so not important, but in the end it was really important to just keep working. And so I worked really, really small. So if you look at slide 7, I took whatever I had in the studio. I had made all these samples of marbling paper that I had, another experiment that I was doing, and started cutting them up and making collages, because that's all I could do. Like I had to do something, I had to create. And so that's what happened. And that whole year went by.
Yeah, 2020.
And then 2 years went by.
Yeah. We were talking though. We were talking. I every 6 months, I would kind of call you up and say,
how you doing?
How are you?
I'm here.
Which I did with a lot of people.
I know you were amazing in touching base.
I did that with a lot of people because I was going through, we're all going through, we're all going through this thing called now COVID, right? And always thinking, because I too was devastated that your show, we didn't have the month-long, rollout.
I don't even think anyone saw it. Literally, like
no, there was a few.
People?
There was a handful.
Yes,
there was a handful.
Literally.
But we did a virtual tour.
Yes.
On March 24th.
Yeah,
and then we packed it up in your car and you
drove.
You brought it home.
Yes.
But I always thought about when When will there be another opportunity? And I never imagined, quite honestly, that it would be more than 2 years. I really didn't. That's probably why I kept calling every.
I know, we're like, we're
calling you
still
every
here,
6
trust
months.
me, we're
Yes.
still here.
Yes, and that was just important to keep that connection going, because I knew you were working on stuff. And I knew at some point I realized we weren't ever going to be able to bring that show back, because you were going to be in a different place artistically, and the world was going to be in a different place. And so we were going to have to acknowledge that, you know, in the next show. And so it really is, I thank you for hanging in there,
Oh my
sticking
gosh.
with me.
Are you kidding?
Because we have, so we've, you know, we had one show last fall, which was just by appointment, because things were kind of crazy with the pandemic then. And then we had one show in this past March, but again, limited, you know,
And most of the
engagement.
school is still virtual.
50-50
so
at this point,
not
you know,
full
so things have
capacity.
obviously shifted and
Right.
changed, and, you know, but more and more things are coming back to in person, which is great. But there were, I think for all of us, there will always be a component of virtual.
Yes.
And so even what we're doing today, you know,
Right.
that we're doing this virtual.
Right.
But so when I said to you, what do you think about coming back? What were you thinking? What were you thinking about for this show?
You know, I wasn't quite sure. And when we were talking early on, was it going to be an exhibit? Were people actually going to be able to see it?
Yeah.
It wasn't what the old show was.
Yeah.
Excuse me, let me just.
Yep.
My throat's a little dry. So I asked you, I said, would it be possible? This is a gorgeous space. It's a huge space. And I had done a private commission last year. Excuse me. And you'll see it in slide 8, that no one can see except for the people who own it and work there. But it is in Springfield.
Yeah.
I was given the opportunity to create a mobile art installation to activate a space, to obscure a not so pretty view, but to let light in.
Yeah.
And I created that mobile. And that was a once in a lifetime thing, I thought. And then it, you know, then I continued back with my paintings. And then you called me and I said, wait a minute, my studio is so small. And I was really fascinated with that process of making a mobile. Would you mind if I spent the month of April, instead of coming up with a show in my studio, to actually create work as we go in this space in a scale that I could never imagine?
Yeah.
And then make it public.
Right.
And you said, sure. And I said,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're
It was
right
a
now.
perfect marriage, really, of
Absolutely.
utilizing a space and problem solving and that what if.
And the
That
what if,
if.
and you
What
say that,
if.
yes, I know.
what
I
if.
always, in my work, I always sort of push myself beyond my usual practice to see if my work can take other forms, if it goes in a particular direction, and I don't know unless I actually try it.
Right.
And this month, I gave myself the freedom to just try anything, to, you know, literally, what would it be like to be in one of my paintings?
Yeah.
And to me, this is as close as to what I can get in the physical realm, for anyone who wanted to sort of think about what that looks like.
Yeah.
This is kind of a chance to do that.
Right. Right. Well, it was a unique opportunity from the gallery perspective as well, because I was thinking, you know, not only about the artistic opportunities, but also like not knowing, are we going to have to just do a virtual tour, or be, you know, like all of these thoughts, because things have ebbed and flowed so much the past couple of years. But thinking about this idea of site specific, right? And so what you've created, which is so unique and so lovely, and so immersive. Can't happen anywhere else.
No,
It is only here
this is very site specific.
in this gallery, in Springfield right now.
Yeah.
And that you can't just take this and then it'll be, the same somewhere else,
I
because
mean, even if I did
every-
take this and put it somewhere, it will have a very
it'll be
different-
very different. Absolutely.
very different
Absolutely. So I like that aspect of it being very temporary,
Yes.
And so thankfully, all of this has sort of coincided with the pandemic not being in such a dire way. And so we are actually opening to the public on Saturday,
Yes.
April 30th, from
Yes.
12 to 4. We are open to the public, and then we are going to be open
For
May
some
2nd through 6th.
hours. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to have open hours next week, and it'll be an opportunity for people to re-engage with
The
the gallery space.
Gosh, it's been closed for so
It's been
long, and
for-
it's
yeah.
nice to have the energy back in here again.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, because this is such a first.
Yeah.
I realize this is the first residency. I think you and I literally came up with let's call it a residency.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first of its kind in this space, and the first kind of installation that is kinetic, that is like this in this
Yeah,
space.
yeah. And I think the idea of residency was like, well, this is being designed in the space
Mhm,
for the space,
mhm.
and then one of the first things you set up was your spray tent. So
People thought I was going to camp here. I'm like, no, this is a
literally-
spray tent. It looks like a regular tent for camping, but no.
Yeah, so it wasn't going to be a performance piece.
No,
But-
no.
But so it really was about being in this space
Oh.
and spending time. And you have been here every day,
Every day for
For-
8 to 10 hours a day, nonstop,
nonstop.
since
Yeah.
April 4th. And we don't have a view of the other side of the gallery, which I've taken over as my studio,
Yeah, yeah,
but it looks like a working studio.
absolutely.
It is
Absolutely.
not a gallery space.
Right.
It is not pristine. It is messy.
Yeah.
It is exciting
Yes.
and full of supplies and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So as we're thinking about this kinetic art, my next question really is like, where do you see maybe this going? Like, this just broke open a whole new body of work, a whole new chapter artistically, professionally, that this is just new territory that you've shared with us.
I am still sort of figuring out what's happening in here. I mean, I still have a few pieces left to make and install. Like, I will be installing up until Thursday, 2 days before the opening. So
You're tweaking and
I'm tweaking and
tweaking.
adding and tweaking and, I'm not sure where it will go, but there's something about working three-dimensionally, which to me has always been very intimidating. Working in the round, having to consider all those views all at once was so overwhelming. And now having a space where there are bajillion views, multi views within this room, it's not as intimidating. And I want to explore working this way a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, I think I'll still continue working 2D on panels, because that's really where I work on my ideas. But to see them in this form has just taken it to another level. Just working with new materials. I had to learn things. I learned how to airbrush. I'm a master with a glue gun. Learning about different textures and materials has informed how I think about my imagery.
Yeah.
A lot.
So one of the largest pieces is right behind us.
Right. This thing's 53 by 43.
Yeah. And can you talk about what material this is and how did you create this? What's the process behind? the
Sure.
creation?
And there's that green again.
Yeah.
So in the original mobile I had done for the commission, I was thinking about something that was sturdy, but lightweight.
Mhm.
And so that piece was actually steel. That was stainless steel.
Mm.
It ended up being a little too heavy for what I'm thinking in this project.
Mhm.
And so I actually switched to aluminum. So the larger shapes that rotate on a spinner are actually laser cut aluminum pieces that I sanded and then painted. They were all flat, of course. And when I drew them out on the computer, they were all flat with linear forms. And then once they were cut, I was able to break them open, obviously. And what I wanted were these forms that would become 3D, but still have space to look through them. Right. So a lot of the things in my work, a lot of the shapes, you're looking through several layers. And so this does that to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah. So you start hanging these pieces once they're painted, and then what happens?
And then a light bulb goes off. I'm like, oh,
Or on.
wow, or on. Yeah, off and on.
Yeah.
Have you tried turning it off and on? And what happens is then I start thinking spatially, like automatically, whereas I didn't usually.
Yeah.
I mean, in painting, it's a very different idea about thinking spatially and working with perspective and depth. Working with an object in space becomes a whole other realm of thinking in terms of those issues. And I think about height, I think about depth, I think about, looking from that angle, looking from this angle. Some, as you know, as you can see, some items move with the spinner, and that's very intentional. And some move via wind because or airflow. So there will be fans situated throughout the installation.
And that's intentional.
That's very intentional because I like this different speeds at which things move. And some don't move at all, or move by a viewer walking through, just by moving the space as they're going through. So those all, and also then I start thinking about light. So I'm working with projected shadows, because if you're in fact in the painting, like those things are part of the painting. But then when a participant comes through, they also become part of the painting, which is kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah. Some of the other materials are.
Oh yes, so these are actually capiz shells, which are popular, or they're from the Philippines and other island areas. And these are painted and dyed, but they're usually white. They're usually made in wind chimes, which I remember growing up, and they make this amazing sort of sound. But I decided to keep them separate and sort of spatial. And I was really liking the colors in them. But they are like everything that I work with. These materials, these are actually from these bolts of fabric that my uncle sent me from the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
So this is Philippine fabric. So the materials that I use are very specific. Like for these are based. This is based off of the pattern in the fabric. But I also, in my learning of airbrush, I decided to create a pattern with it to mimic some of the patterns that are in the moving mobile pieces. And because I work with patterns a lot, these pom-poms, which I put in there, which would normally not be a material that I use, but what I liked about it was it added an element of whimsy to the piece, but also randomness. So there's a random pattern, whatever I grabbed out of the bag and placed on it was the order in which it goes on. So, there seems to be a lot of order within this piece, but there is a lot of sort of randomness to it.
Did you ever have a moment, or maybe more than one moment, where something didn't work?
Oh yeah.
How describe, do you have an example of when something just like you wanted it to work, but it just.
Well, for this particular piece, definitely, I had all these ideas of painting the walls, adding fabric to the walls, and just technically things just didn't work and immediately scrapped. And in my own studio, when I don't, when I work on a painting and it just doesn't work, it just goes away, or it gets put in a corner. But generally,
like, do you throw work away? Do you cover it up? Do you paint over, or
I
do you?
I usually paint over it. It's done.
Okay.
Yeah, back probably 20 years ago, I would sand it down, but still keep remnants of that process in there.
Okay.
But my work process has changed, and I would usually either just cover it over or just throw it out. like literally just,
Are you
or
gonna
use it for something else.
Yeah. Are you going to have to get a different studio after this?
Gosh, I'm a little concerned because I'm really liking the size of this room. And it's quite an honor to be able to work in this space. It really is.
So I want to pivot a little bit.
Sure.
Because you once said art benefits the community by providing and enhancing different perspectives on what makes us human. And I thought that was such a lovely quote.
Thank you.
And really related to work that you do outside of the studio. And that you are very much a culture vulture. You are in the before times, someone who would go to every reception. You know, you were organizing. And so, I mean, I think I said in my introductory remarks, you are a curator, you are an art beat reporter, a working artist. You are the curator, the creator and founder of Florence Night Out, which has like what, 5,000 people showed up last night.
Right.
I mean, that's a big party to host.
It's a big- yes.
And you're on the committee for the Art Salon, which travels around the valley,
Right.
offering different groups of artists to gather.
Yes. We had one here actually.
And we had one
Yes.
here.
Kay
in-
Douglas was one of the
That's
the
right.
artists who actually exhibited after the Art Salon from that.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's right. That's,
Mhm.
oh my God. And I was in the Art Salon.
You were too?
I think that's actually how we met, I was May of 2018.
Oh
I looked it up.
gosh.
You were April of 2016.
Oh my goodness. Right, I actually presented at the Art Salon as
Yes,
well.
in 2016. yeah.
Right.
And I think, yeah, and I had presented in 2018 and it took us several months to actually connect, but
Mm-hmm.
we were connected by these events,
Right.
these community events.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you could talk about being so involved and being so engaged and maybe how that impacts your work.
I am always inspired by so much of the work that's going on in this community. And I'm in a place of privilege where I actually can promote these things. I believe in democratizing art. I believe that it should be accessible to all. It should be free. And when I present artists on my radio show, I try to highlight artists or organizations who don't necessarily have a lot of exposure. In the Art Salon, we try to promote artists from outside of the area or within the community and share their work locally. And my main impetus behind Florence Night Out, which is a one-night art street festival, again, is literally bringing art to the people. So Florence, you know, generally can be considered more of a thoroughfare, people driving through from the hill towns to Northampton or vice versa. You know, Florence Night Out is a way for people to stop and experience. And we literally put mobile art boxes in the street. We literally put an art crosswalk there. We literally have performances happening. We have music going here, theater there, like bringing it to the people, like so that they can experience something outside of their daily habits. It is that one moment. There was one moment, I have to just talk about this.
Yes, please.
We had a mobile art box at the VFW in Florence. It was a sculpture made, an inflatable sculpture by Chris Nelson. Is this huge fluorescent inflatable, which looked like a dinosaur tail, coming out of this mobile storage unit. And a local who was a frequent visitor to the VFW walked by the sculpture and did a double take. And to me, that made the whole festival. Yeah, it did its purpose. Like it just took you out of your regular habits and just made you look at the world differently for just that moment. So
Had there ever been an event like that in Florence? I mean,
No.
you closed down Main Street, right?
we shut the whole
shut the
street
whole
down.
Main Street is
Main
closed
Street,
down
Maple, North Maple, and
for
literally
hours.
turn it for 3 hours into an arts block party.
Yeah. When is the next one?
Oh, it is
Is it-
Saturday, September 24th from 4 to
We
7
might as well
p.m.
plug it.
Might as well plug it. Saturday, September 24th from 4 to 7 p.m.
Wow.
It is free and open to the public. There will be music, there will be art, there will be dance,
Mhm.
performance, there will be activities for families and everyone. So please come.
Yeah.
And then there'll be an event afterwards from 7 to 9 at the Behnke Center for Arts and Equity,
Mhm.
which I'm also on board.
I'm sorry if I didn't.
No
listen.
worries,
You're,
no
you're
worries.
involved in so many
I
things.
just can't help myself.
So how do you find time? How do
To
you
do my
find-
work?
Yes,
That's a
how do
good
you
question.
find time to do all
I
this
have to
work?
like commit to coming in every single day for a month and make work.
You needed an opportunity like this. This
I did
really.
need an opportunity like this to really stop and be present
Mhm.
in the moment of making and
Be your own artist.
and be my own artist.
Yeah.
And plus my kids are off in college, so that also helps too. That makes a big difference.
It's true. It's
Mhm.
true. And which is funny because in one of the emails that I read last night, trying to piece together how we met, you were at the time were still a taxi. You said
Carpooling.
You were a
I was
mom
driving.
taxi.
That's right. I was still carting
know,
kids back and
so,
forth.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does make a difference
Mhm.
where you are, where your kids are in your life,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely. I've
Um,
launched them. They're good.
You've done your job.
I've done my job.
So in terms of the Art Salon,
Mhm,
which you've been involved with for a number of years,
mhm.
where is that? Where's the Art Salon right now?
So we have a whole new committee. Our gracious founder, Ava Fierst,
Mm.
has retired because she has a bunch of grandbabies now
Oh.
that she wants to spend time with and to also do other things.
Mhm.
So Ava Fierst has retired, Betsy Stone is retired, and Lisa
Mhm.
Thompson continues to be a consultant, but she will also probably hand the keys over to someone.
Yeah.
So we currently have a whole new committee. It is myself.
Mhm.
So I'm a senior member of the salon.
Mhm.
Amanda Herman, who is at the UMass Museum of Contemporary Art, the director of curatorial events there. We have artist Priya
Mhm.
Carney Green,
Who is on faculty here?
on faculty
Yeah.
here, which is wonderful.
Yes,
And
yes.
I hope she tells her students about this. And we also have Jessica Poser, who
Mhm.
is a professor over at Springfield College. And we are the new team. And we are having our first, actually our second, we had our first art salon a couple months ago, but our next one is June 16th. We travel. So this one will be at Gateway City Arts on June 16th. So
In Holyoke.
please mark your calendars.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's great.
Yes. And then probably Cummington after that.
Wow.
Mhm.
Going to the Hilltowns.
I know.
Has
I
it
know.
been that far out before?
Yes.
It has,
We've
okay,
gone as far
okay.
as Cummington. We've been to Westfield, we've been to Springfield,
Yeah.
not North Adams. I think that's probably a little too far for
Yeah.
most folks to travel for one night.
Yeah, yeah.
But we try to get the range of demographics
Yeah.
represented for sure.
Yeah. So are you optimistic about the future?
What do you think?
I
I'm
don't know.
like,
I mean,
future looks pretty bright to
your
me.
work makes me feel brighter.
Oh, well,
It gives me a good energy. And I feel like, knowing your work makes me know you better somehow, like, just a little window into like, a brighter outlook.
thank you. Thank you. I am the ultimate optimist. I am always looking at the brighter corner of wherever I am and just thankful for every single day. And I think with that perspective, it gives me the opportunity to make the best of whatever I do. Sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on myself, right? But it also makes me strive and, try to be a light somehow. I think we all need a little light, and
Yes.
we can all bring, each and every one of us can bring light no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do.
Well, I think your work is doing that in this
Great.
space. And I hope people will be able to come out and see
Me
it.
too.
Even though when they do get here for this,
Mhm.
it's going to be darker in this
Oh,
space.
yes, because I'm still installing. So
And the
there's
lights are going to be a little bit
right.
dimmer,
Yes.
intentionally so.
Yes.
So what, when you think about the arc of your career,
Mhm.
this is kind of a two-part question because I think about what you might say to aspiring artists,
Mhm.
young aspiring artists, but I
Mhm.
also think about what you might have wanted to know or wished you had known when you were a younger artist. You know,
Mm.
like what might you say to aspiring artists today?
Hmm. You know, I think the biggest drive behind my work, and I would tell this, I used to teach as well, I would tell this to my students all the time is, and this never gets old, I'll say it in every interview if I need to, but always ask questions, right? So you had mentioned earlier, what if? What if is one of my biggest questions I carry with me throughout my studio practice. And that leads me to so many unknown places. Some work. I actually I did a whole felting workshop for a month, learned an amazing process, but the piece in itself in the end was horrible. And everyone's getting felted coasters for the holidays. But other than that, I learned something about that process, which then directed me and led me to another process. If you don't ask the questions, you won't ever find out. And so being curious is probably the biggest thing that I have to say. Just ask questions. What if? If what if is the only question you ask, then that will take you so far. You know, I think there isn't anything that I wish I had known before because it wouldn't have taken me to where I am now. So everyone's path is different. Everyone's path to discovery will be different. So I just say, you know, just really, it sounds cliche, but just go for it. Like it literally is, don't, you know, quiet the doubts and just trust that you're going to the right place.
Yeah, that's great advice. I wish I had gotten that advice when I was an artist.
Just trust, don't doubt.
Yeah. Well, but part of it too is it speaks to taking risks.
For sure.
Taking risks and sort of taking a leap of faith, or, you know, in the case of this show, you know, it was a leap of faith for both of us.
Oh, for sure.
You know, because we didn't really know, you know, you didn't know, I didn't know, but it was like, we're going to go on this journey and we're going to see where it ends up. But I, you know, the whole time I always had the utmost confidence that you were going to create something amazing because I've been just such a huge fan of your work for so many years. And I feel like this was a real honor and privilege to host you in this space and for you to share so much of the sort of even the behind the scenes
You're looking
aspect
at
of it, you know. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
really like and really allowing the viewer in on a whole different level, you know. Not all artists do that.
I've always
you know.
found it to be one of the most generous acts of kindness for someone to let you into their creative process. Like, it's so privy sometimes, and some, you know, I'm not revealing all, but I am revealing some, and I think it's being generous. I think everyone should be more generous.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for doing this show, for doing this interview. And I think we're going to have a great crowd, you know,
If not,
socially
I'll still be
distanced.
dancing in here. It'll be so, I'll just be floating.
Yes.
Really, it'll be great.
Because I think I've said this to you before, because this is a celebration of you. This is a celebration of your vision. It's a celebration of you as an artist and as a person, and that light that comes off of your paintings, that glow, it's coming off of you as well. You know, like you have that glow that you refer to, you know, that you paint, and just what an amazing opportunity to share this with you. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Sandra.
And
It's-
I can't wait to see what happens next.
me too. Who knows?
But I'm sure it will be good.
Yeah,
And when we get there, you know,
I'll be excited.
we will be excited because, you know, it's meaningful. The work that you're making is really meaningful and really impactful. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who's tuning in right now. And we will do another Carberry conversation in the future. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.